Welcome back to the first ever ride-along on the Baby Takes channel. We'll start off with some home housekeeping things. Basically, we haven't had an episode in a little bit. Zach's been doing some other things. He's been busy, so we haven't had time to get an episode out. We were going to get an episode out for the Pick'em on Saturday, but I didn't get it out in time, and obviously I can't release it after the games. There's really no point in that. So this is the first episode you're going to see before our first reactions episode later this week. So this is basically going to be just another show. I don't know if it's going to be weekly or whatever it's going to be. Basically just whenever I commute back and forth from school. So let's just get right into it. This episode is sponsored by HotStreak Fantasy. You've heard me talk about it before if you watch the videos. Basically, it's a fantasy betting app where you do a bunch of parlays on players, basically just what their stats are going to be, so you can take the over on Aaron Rodgers' passing yards if he's playing, or you know what I mean, just like parlays. And then for that, at registration, you're going to want to use our code BABY, and that'll help us out a lot. Let them know that we sent you. So with the NFL season happening, our show has basically been just NFL. And I wanted to take a break from NFL, talk a little bit about NBA. And without Zach here, I think this is a good opportunity because I'm more knowledgeable in the NBA than he is. He'll admit that. When we were first starting, we just chose his favorite NBA team. So he's not huge in the NBA. I love it. So we'll talk about it. And obviously, you can tell from the title of the video, this is the Ben Simmons video. This Ben Simmons thing has been going on for a long time. Basically, he wants out, and 76ers are not willing to trade him for what they think is adequate value, which is, I get it. I mean, he's a all-NBA type guy. When he's on his game, he's always going to be in that Defensive Player of the Year conversation. He was just second in the Defensive Player of the Year voting last year. So he's a young player. Obviously didn't have a good playoffs. That's why fans were on him. His team even came about and talked bad on him. So I can see why he wants out. And basically today we're going to be going through some of the trade packages that I think could work. Some that maybe not everybody's talking about. You see the ones with Minnesota. I have a Minnesota one. I have a couple Minnesota ones in there actually because I think that's just the best fit. I talked about this way earlier in the podcast, but these are some that they're only going to be players because I didn't want to. Picks can go either way. I don't think it really matters. You can add picks to any deal. And with the 76ers, they don't really want picks because they want to win now. So let's just start off with one that I think is the least likely to happen. I think this is more likely to happen if Ben Simmons goes into the season not being traded because his value is going to be lower. So basically, this one is the least likely, and this is the Ben Simmons package for the LA Clippers. I have, obviously, the Clippers getting Ben Simmons, and the 76ers getting Eric Bledsoe, Luke Kennard, and Ivica Zubac. So this trade is definitely not as enticing as some of the other ones you'll see, because depending on how you feel about Eric Bledsoe as a player, Luke Kennard as a player, nobody really knows, but he's going to be able to stretch the floor for you. That's always been what he does. Zubac is a good young center. Doesn't do too much, but he's a good body down there. Get rebounds, putbacks, blocks, plays good defense. Just your normal center. So basically, what the Clippers would be running out as a lineup, I'm gonna put Kawhi in this lineup, even though he won't be starting. Actually, I'll do both. So to start the season, the Clippers would probably be looking like Ben Simmons at the 1, Paul George at the 2, Terrence Mann maybe at the 3, probably Marcus Morris at the 4 and Serge Ibaka at the 5. And then when Kawhi comes back, you would pretty much just put him in where Terrence Mann is, Ben Simmons, Paul George, Kawhi, Marcus Morris, and Serge Ibaka. I think defensively that might be the best defensive team in the league. With Ben Simmons obviously being an all-defense type guy, Paul George, everybody knows he's great on the defensive end. Kawhi, one of the best defenders in the game. Marcus Morris can defend pretty well, and Serge Ibaka is going to block a lot of shots for you down in the post. So I think that puts the Clippers right back in that conversation with the Lakers. I know it's not the prettiest lineup, but I think matchup-wise, I think it's really good against the Lakers, and I think doing that trade would really put the Clippers and Lakers on top of the West. The next trade I have is a weird one. It's with the Toronto Raptors. I did the Toronto Raptors because I think it's a good fit. But it was hard to find a package because you got to get the salaries to match up. Obviously, Ben Simmons is making a max deal. So what I ended up getting was the Raptors getting Ben Simmons and Shake Milton, and the 76ers getting Goran Dragic and OG Anunoby. This is a more enticing package because Goran Dragic is going to be someone who can make plays for you on the perimeter, which is exactly what Philadelphia needs, in my opinion. And he already said he doesn't want to play in Toronto after getting traded there in the Kyle Lowry deal. And then OG Anunoby is a guy who can, your typical 3-and-D guy, but he can be more than that. He's a top 10 wing defender in the league for sure. But he can also make some shots. I think he averaged like 16 last year, and it just continues to get better. So OG Anunoby is a young piece, but he's also a win-now piece. And with his extension, it makes the salaries match up pretty well. And then for the Raptors, they'd be running out a lineup of, I think, depending on if you want to start Fred VanVleet at the 2 or the 1, I would think you would start Ben Simmons at the 1, VanVleet at the 2, probably Scotty Barnes at the 3, or I don't know, you can choose between Gary Trent and Scotty Barnes there. Pascal at the 4, and then Chris Boucher at the 5, was in the most improved talks for a little bit last year. I think that's a solid lineup. I don't think it's a championship lineup, but Toronto's got some young pieces that could make that team pretty fun to watch. I think Ben Simmons fits right in there. Adds that defense that OG Anunoby left. Obviously, he's getting traded away, and then that can work well because Ben Simmons is also young. So that's definitely a more enticing package. But this one is definitely, I think, the most realistic package on here, and that's the Timberwolves. I love Ben Simmons for the Timberwolves. I think it's a perfect fit. You got Karl-Anthony Towns who can stretch the floor, the best shooting center in the league today easily. One of the best in history, I think. I think Karl-Anthony Towns is criminally underrated. I have 2. So I have one where you would give up D'Lo, and then another one where you wouldn't. So I think you give up D'Lo if you get this deal done soon, but if Ben Simmons goes into the season still not playing, his value is only going to get lower. So I think D'Lo would be off the table if his value is that low. So I got D'Lo, D'Angelo Russell, and Jaden McDaniels going to the Philadelphia 76ers, and then Ben Simmons going to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think starting off with the 76ers, D'Lo would fit perfectly into that one spot. I would love to see him with Joel Embiid. That pick and roll game would be amazing. And Jaden McDaniels is just a young piece that showed promise last year, can stretch the floor for you. People were saying he's like a Michael Porter Jr. light. So he's like a not as talented version of Michael Porter Jr., but he's got the length, he's got the tools, and he's got that scoring ability that you like at the 4 position, especially for a team like Philadelphia. But then the lineup for the Timberwolves, and I love this lineup. It'd probably be Ben Simmons at the 1. I like him more at the 4, but with D'Lo leaving, you would probably have to put him at the 1. So Ben Simmons at the 1, probably Malik Beasley at the 2, Malik Beasley at the 2 or 3, and then Anthony Edwards also at the 2 or 3. They're both wings, so it really doesn't matter. That power forward position would probably be Jared Vanderbilt, who's good defensively, and then obviously Cat at center. And I think that's a playoff team for sure. I think that has a lot of potential, especially with all their key pieces being young, with Ben Simmons being young. Obviously, Anthony Edwards was a rookie last year. Malik Beasley is a young piece. And Karl-Anthony Towns is still 26, 27, I believe. So he's got a lot of good years left. So I think that's a really good lineup. Really good potential there. But the other Timberwolves trade I had was if this went on into the season and Ben Simmons' value dropped. So I got Malik Beasley, Taurean Prince, and Josh Okogie going to the 76ers for Ben Simmons. Obviously, the 76ers would not be getting what they want to get. But Malik Beasley's still a good young piece, only 24, 25 years old. Good wing that can stretch the floor for you, can score for you, can be that secondary or maybe third scorer behind Tobias Harris and Joel Embiid. And Josh Okogie is a good young piece, can play defense, just needs to figure out that offensive role. And then Taurean Prince is just for the salary, but he can also stretch the floor a little bit for you, good wing off the bench. And then obviously I already talked about Ben Simmons with the Timberwolves. So the next one I have is the one I probably like the most for the 76ers. This has Ben Simmons going to the Pacers. So Ben Simmons going to the Pacers and the 76ers getting Malcolm Brogdon and TJ Warren. This is probably the best package you're going to get if you're the 76ers, because Damian Lillard's off the table, Bradley Beal's off the table. So you're really just looking for good role players at this point in time, and I think both these guys are perfect role players. Malcolm Brogdon is a guy that can facilitate an offense, stretch the floor, run that pick and roll with Joel Embiid. Not going to score that many points, but you don't really need him to because you got TJ Warren also there. So this 76ers lineup would be interesting because you would have Brogdon at the 1. That 2 spot would be interesting. I don't know if you put Matisse there. I don't really know. The 3 spot would be probably TJ Warren. And then obviously Tobias Harris and Joel Embiid rounding out the front court. And then the Pacers lineup, I love this Pacers lineup. At the 1, you'd probably put Ben Simmons, Karis LeVert at the 2. At the 3, I can't really think of anyone off the 3 and off the top of my head. The 4, Domantas Sabonis, and 5, Miles Turner. I think that front court would pair perfectly with Ben Simmons because Miles Turner can block a lot of shots, but he can also stretch the floor for you. Domantas Sabonis has shown that he can stretch the floor a little bit, but Domantas Sabonis also would take over some of those playmaking needs away from Ben Simmons, and that would. But I think that team is a definite playoff team in the East. I don't know, definitely not a title contender because you still got Milwaukee. Miami's still going to be good. Obviously, Brooklyn is the favorite right now. And then those are my trade offers. If you guys watching this video think of any more, send them to me on Twitter, tweet them at me, comment them in this video. But this Ben Simmons situation is really exciting. I just can't wait to see where he goes. And I like Ben Simmons. I'm a Ben Simmons guy. Always plays great defense. I just think he needs that perfect role. We haven't seen it with him yet because he's been playing with a dominant post scorer like Joel Embiid. So it's hard for him to not clog up the paint. So I'm excited to see what happens with Ben Simmons, and I'm excited to see what else we can do with this ride along, I think is what I'm calling it right now. I thought about a few different names. Ride along, car rides with Caleb, but I settled on ride along. If you guys like it, let me know. Definitely can change, but that'll do it for the first episode of Ride Along. Thanks for watching, and follow our Twitter, our Instagram. It'll all be in the link in the bio. And subscribe, like and subscribe to get more content like this. But I will see you guys later in the week with our first reactions video.